G'day. In 1970, John Michael Taberlach was writing his thesis for a master's degree. He attended an Easter service wearing overalls and a t-shirt and was frisked for drugs by a policeman as he was leaving. He'd been inspired to go because of the joy he'd found in reading the Gospels while doing his studies, but he said, "I left with the feeling that rather than rolling the rock away from the tomb, they were piling more on." But he was inspired. He went home and wrote his thesis. It was in the form of a play, and that play became the famous musical about Jesus known as Godspell. In Godspell, Jesus is presented as a clown. Not a ridiculous clown or a scary clown. He's presented as the kind of clown who tears down pretensions of the proud and undermines the power of rulers, but raises the poor and the humble. Let's keep this image in mind as we read the story of Jesus coming up the back way into Jerusalem. It's in Luke chapter 19, verses 28 to 40. It says, after he'd said this, he went on ahead going up to Jerusalem. When he'd come near Bethphage and Bethany at the place called the Mount of Olives, he sent two of his disciples, saying, "Go into the village ahead of you, and as you enter it, you'll find there tied a colt that has never been ridden. Untie it and bring it here. If anyone asks you, 'Why are you untying it?' just say this, 'The Lord needs it.'" So those who were sent departed and found it as he had told them. As they were untying the colt, its owners asked, "Why are you untying the colt?" They said, "The Lord needs it." Then they brought it to Jesus, and after throwing their cloaks on the colt, they set Jesus on it. As he rode along, people kept spreading their cloaks on the road. As he was now approaching the path down from the Mount of Olives, the whole multitude of the disciples began to praise God joyfully with a loud voice for all the deeds of power they had seen, saying, "Blessed is the King who comes in the name of the Lord, peace on earth and glory in the highest heaven." Some of the Pharisees in the crowd said to him, "Teacher, order your disciples to stop." He answered, "I tell you, if these were silent, the stones would shout out." Have you ever seen Godspell? The character of Jesus wears colourful overalls and a skivvy. He has little triangles like tears under his eyes, one on each side, and is hippie and clown combined. But he welds a group of people into a community of followers and teaches them in words mostly from Matthew's Gospel and in songs, some of them from the Episcopal hymnal. I thought of Godspell as I was thinking of this talk because Taberlach captures the spirit of Jesus in this triumphant entry into Jerusalem. Jesus is tearing down the pretensions of the proud and undermining the power of rulers, yet at the same time he inspires hope and joy in the poor and the humble. But let's start with a little geography and history. Before Jesus entered Jerusalem, he attended a meal in the home of Mary, Martha, and Lazarus, where Mary anointed his feet with perfume and wiped them with her hair. These three lived in Bethany, about 3 kilometres east of Jerusalem. It's now a West Bank settlement known as Al-Azariah, the place of Lazarus. It's on the slopes of the Mount of Olives. In the time of Jesus, a road led into Jerusalem, entering through the temple gate, which led into the temple precinct. But there were several gates to the city, and another one was the Tower Gate on the western side of the city. This was the end of the road from the coast to Joppa. So these two gates were on roughly the opposite sides of the city. Both are at the ends of roads climbing toward the city. It's important to understand this geography. But there's important background history as well. We're at the beginning of Passover week, and there was a tradition. You might remember that one Passover tradition was that the Roman Procurator, Pontius Pilate, released a prisoner to the people. He would have happily released Jesus, but the crowd called for Barabbas. Have you ever considered how Pontius Pilate got to be in Jerusalem at Passover? He didn't live in Jerusalem. He lived on the coast at Caesarea Maritima, about 60 kilometres north of Joppa. It was about 12 hours on foot, but he probably sailed to Joppa, and then he rode accompanied by soldiers on horse like himself and on foot into Jerusalem. He stayed in the compound built for him by Herod, so when he sent Jesus to Herod, he only had to send him next door, just across the courtyard. So we need to imagine what's happening on the day of Jesus' triumphant entry. We start on the west side. It's the first day of the Passover week. All the important people have been waiting for hours. They're dressed in their best clothes. They're members of Herod's family and staff. There's the high priest and members of his family and of the Sanhedrin, the top court. There are official guards. There are priests and Levites who are not immediately needed in the temple. There are wives and children. There are tax collectors and their families ready to go, but knowing they'll stand alone. There are people who are just curious to see a procession. Then the people of the city hear distant trumpets and the sounds of marching. When there are no cars, no factories, no trains, you can hear sounds from a long distance. Those who had to put on last-minute hats or cloaks put them on and moved. When the Procurator arrived, you had to be ready. Long before the approaching detachment was visible, with their banners and armoured horses with brass helmets gleaming, with spears aloft to declare the invincible power of Rome, the people were lined up along the route. It was courtesy, it was the done thing. It was the safe thing. Imagine if no one came out. Surely the Romans would treat it as disrespect. The hills would be stabbed with row after row of crosses. The Romans never worried how many they killed when they punished a city. And then the procession was visible. At its head, Pilate himself, dressed in splendour, almost rivaling that of the emperor, riding a white stallion, the conqueror, the giver and the taker of life itself. The people cheered. They threw palm branches in front of the arriving troop so that they no longer had to walk in the dust, not in this important city. They spread their cloaks before the Roman. Nothing was too good for him. There were shouts, "Hail Caesar!" as they stretched their right hands up toward the hero. Meanwhile, on the other side of the city, something else was happening. But let's go back a couple of hours. While people in the upper city were getting ready for Pilate to arrive, a couple of Jesus' disciples were sent out to make preparations for Jesus. In particular, they were told to go into the village ahead and find a colt there that had never been ridden. Jesus told them, "And untie it and bring it here. If anyone asks you why you're untying it, just say, 'The Lord needs it.'" And that's what happened. They must have looked like bicycle thieves just untying this colt. The owners see them undoing the knots and they shout, "Oi! What are you doing? Why are you untying this colt?" It's interesting, in the Greek, it describes these owners as Kyrie, which means owners or masters. And the two disciples say, "The Lord," or Kyrios, needs it. He is the Kyrios of these Kyrii, the Lord of these lords. There's no argument. Interestingly, they brought this untamed donkey to Jesus, put their cloaks on it, and Jesus rode it. He's also Lord and Master of the donkey. Perhaps you can see where this is going. Jesus rides in through the eastern gate, effectively right into the temple courts, at roughly the same time as, in all his pomp and display, Pilate enters Herod's palace on the western side. The people greeting Jesus don't think they're especially important. They're the poor people, the ones no one else is interested in, the ones with bad teeth and criminal records. They know who they are, and they know who Jesus is. And just as the people waved palm fronds when the Maccabees liberated Jerusalem, now the people wave palm fronds and shout, "Hosanna, Lord save." They hope that the day has come to drive out the Romans, that Jesus will rule as king. They don't know that he has to be lifted up on a cross before he can rule the world. They don't know that he will conquer both the Romans and the Jews and everyone else with love. They have too small a vision of too small a God. They imagine a God big enough for the Jews, but not big enough for the world. Nevertheless, they now see Jesus fulfilling Zechariah 9 verse 9, which says, "Your king is coming to you, righteous and having salvation is he, humble and mounted on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a donkey." Even now, people can't quite see what's happening. But in riding in at this time, in this way, Jesus is mocking the pride of the rich and the wealthy. He's bringing down the pretensions of the proud and undermining the power of rulers. Yet at the same time, he's inspiring hope and joy in the poor and the humble. It's hard to imagine Jesus' confidence as he declares himself, even though he knows it will lead to the cross. And it's equally hard to imagine his combination of overflowing joy and bitter sarcasm as he pricks the pomposity of Pilate and the priests. If any psalm can top off Jesus' entry into Jerusalem, it's Psalm 2. It talks about the nations conspiring, the people plotting, the kings rising up for war against the Lord and his Messiah. It talks of the desire of the world's powerful people to break the chains of love and destroy the constraints of peace and justice. In answer, the psalmist tells us, "The one enthroned in heaven laughs. The Lord scoffs at them. He rebukes them in his anger and terrifies them in his wrath, saying, I have installed my king on Zion, my holy mountain." The psalm continues, "Kiss the Son, or he'll be angry, and your way will lead to your destruction. For his wrath can flare up in a moment. Blessed are all who take refuge in him." Which side of Jerusalem would you have found yourself on that morning when Pilate came up one hill and Jesus ascended the other? Sometimes we Christians think we should be with the people thronging the Western Gate. We aren't the troublemakers. We're on the side of law and order. Or we're like Mark Antony in Shakespeare's Julius Caesar, despising the mob with their stinking breath and their sweaty nightcaps. If we are to nakedly follow a naked Christ, our place is with Jesus, the clown king, taking up his regal authority and mocking the vain imaginations of the world's powers. Our place is with the unwanted, the unloved, and the uncouth, if necessary, poking serious fun at the world's self-righteously good people, but realising that it's in bearing shame and scoffing rude that Jesus could prick our own pomposity and bring us to life. Jesus tears down the pretensions of the proud and undermines the power of rulers, yet he still inspires hope and joy in the poor and the humble. Let's choose carefully which side of Jerusalem we enter. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe using the button below.